If you had stopped by that little corner in the Bronx, New York, back in October of 1935, and managed to keep your footing on that narrow, dirt-covered street, the first thing you'd hear would be a sign gently swaying in the wind. Nailed to a wooden post, it read just one thing: Bar and Grill. And right there in front of the door, at the bottom of the steps, stood a man, looking straight into your eyes, as if time itself was staring right back at you. This photograph, taken on October 11th, 1935, is real. And the person behind the lens wasn't just any photographer. When Berenice Abbott, one of the most important documentary photographers of her time, walked onto Ewen Avenue that morning with her massive camera, she carried a single purpose: the urge to capture it before it changed. For years, Abbott had said, "Old New York is fast disappearing. If this moment of transition isn't documented, it will be lost forever." And that afternoon, that bar on the corner of Ewen Avenue was etched into history. Spuyten Duyvil. Most people pause when they hear this name. And that reaction is completely natural, because this isn't just any ordinary neighborhood name. Coming from early Dutch settlers, the word Spuyten Duyvil literally means spouting devil. When Dutch immigrants first recorded this area back in 1647, they were faced with furious, swirling whirlpools churning at the intersection of the Hudson and Harlem rivers. Those early settlers believed these waters were the work of the devil. And that is exactly how this place went down in history. Spuyten Duyvil, the place that dared to cross the devil. In his 1809 work, Knickerbocker's History of New York, Washington Irving writes about a Dutch trumpeter named Anthony Van Corlear, who drowned in these very waters. Van Corlear lost his life in 1642 while trying to swim across the Hudson River. An eyewitness claimed that it was the devil himself who dragged him under. These layers of history turn Spuyten Duyvil into something much more than just a neighborhood. They transform it into a living, breathing entity. And this entity stretches all the way to 1935, to Berenice Abbott's camera, and to that man standing at the door of that corner bar. The real growth of Spuyten Duyvil as a modern neighborhood began in the late 19th century, when the New York Central and Hudson River Railroad pushed through the area. Cornelius Vanderbilt laid down new tracks north of the Harlem River to consolidate railroad lines into a single terminal. Today, those very tracks are still used by Metro-North trains. Following the railroad, the neighborhood boomed. Immigrant families from Ireland, Italy, and Eastern Europe settled along small streets like Ewen, Sage, and Leiden. By the 1920s, the population of the Bronx had surged past 1.2 million. The vast majority of these people were carpenters, masons, painters, small shopkeepers, and blue-collar laborers. Ewen Avenue was named after General John Ewen, a man who left a deep mark on this neighborhood and New York history. As documented in Bronx historian John McNamara's 1978 book, History in Asphalt, John Ewen served in the New York State National Guard during the Civil War. In July of 1863, he fought in the Battle of Gettysburg, a major turning point in American history. It was an unprecedented, bloody battle that saw over 50,000 casualties in just 3 days. After returning from Gettysburg, Ewen served as the comptroller of New York City. Years went by, and Ewen passed away. But in 1916, his daughter Eliza donated a park bearing her father's name to the city. And that very park officially opened to the public in 1935, the exact same year Berenice Abbott photographed Ewen Avenue. By the time 1935 rolled around, America was deeply exhausted. The Great Depression, which began after the 1929 stock market crash, had turned the lives of millions of American families upside down. The Bronx bore the brunt of this devastation. Factories closed, the construction industry collapsed, and evictions tripled nationwide. There were men on the streets desperate to work, but with nowhere to go. Children played on the sidewalks while neighbors brought food to each other's doorsteps. But these people didn't give up. The working class of the Bronx carried a resilience born from centuries of immigrant heritage, and that resilience had its own gathering places. And right in the middle of this era, a massive door opened in America's social history. Prohibition, the ban on alcohol that had lasted for 13 long years, from 1920 to 1933, was finally over. On December 5th, 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the 21st Amendment into law. This historic move remains the only time in American constitutional history that an amendment was repealed by another. Bars reopened. People moved away from speakeasies, bootleggers, and organized crime, gathering instead in legitimate social spaces. And these places were about much more than just grabbing a drink. They were genuine community centers where neighbors shared news, talked politics, looked for work, and held on to one another. The Bar and Grill at 2565 Ewen Avenue was born out of this exact atmosphere. The sign clearly visible in the photograph proves that this place opened legally. The 3-story brick and stone building rises from a solid foundation. On the wooden structures next to it, fire escapes are visible. The street is still dirt, unpaved and prone to mud. But on the right side, a massive vehicle with solid cast iron wheels is parked. This piece of equipment belonged to a road paving crew. Asphalt was making its way down this street. Modern life was about to knock on the door. And right in front of that door stood a bar, with its doors wide open to everyone.
Berenice Abbott didn't just take this single photograph on October 11th, 1935. That very same day, on the exact same street, she also photographed the interior of an old grocery store. Located just a short distance away at 2553 Sage Place, this little shop was known as Ye Old Country Store. The midday sun flooded inside, spilling across the wooden floors. The old clock on the wall read 11:50. A cast iron stove stood in the corner. Meat advertisements for the Havranek brothers, immigrants of Czech descent who ran a butcher shop in Yonkers from 1920 to 1949, were posted on the walls. When Abbott captured these spaces, nothing was staged. Everything was just there, exactly as it was at that very moment.
Abbott brought this photography series to life with funding from the Federal Art Project, established as part of Roosevelt's New Deal to support artists left unemployed during the Great Depression. Over a 4-year period from 1935 to 1939, Abbott took more than 300 photographs, compiling them under the title Changing New York. Covering every corner of the city, this series documented everything from skyscrapers to back alleys, bridges to corner grocery stores, theater posters to dirt streets. Today, this series is widely considered one of the most important archives of 20th century photography. The New York State Museum, the Museum of the City of New York, and the New York Public Library meticulously preserve the prints from this historic collection.
There is a man in this photograph, standing at the bottom of the stone steps, right in front of the door. He's wearing everyday work clothes. His gaze is directed straight at the camera. In his posture, there is neither defense nor aggression, just pure existence. Amidst that heavy exhaustion, right in the thick of those hard days, he just stands there. Standing feels like an action. Existing feels like an answer. And just above, from a second-floor window, a child looks down, their face barely visible. 2 generations captured in the exact same frame. One fully in this world, the other just stepping into it. And between them stretches the dirt road of Ewen Avenue, beating like the pulse of a country on the brink of change.
Today, Ewen Avenue is gone. Sage Place is gone. Leyden Place is gone. These three streets were completely wiped off the map during the transformation Spuyten Duyvil went through over the decades. Today, those places are filled with parks, trees, and a modernized neighborhood. The photographs Berenice Abbott took on October 11th, 1935, are among the most powerful pieces of evidence we have left that these streets ever existed. That bar, that man, that child, that dirt road, they all live on today only within those black and white frames. If Abbott hadn't been there that day, who would have ever known about that corner on Ewen Avenue, that sign, or that single moment? Today, these photographs are publicly accessible through the digital collections of the New York Public Library. Berenice Abbott's Changing New York series has been exhibited in leading institutions across America and the world, from the Museum of the City of New York to the San Diego Museum of Art, and from the National Museum of Women in the Arts to the MIT Museum. That massive camera in a woman's hands managed to keep a street, a bar, and a man alive as it traveled through time. Photography cannot imprison the past, but it can testify to the fact that it existed. And sometimes that is worth more than anything else. Every generation leaves its own city behind. Most of the time, they don't even mean to. Years pass. Buildings are torn down, names change, and streets disappear. But in those moments, on those corners, at those tables, and inside those bars, there were people who truly lived. And those people were real. That bar and grill was real. That man was real. That child was real. Even in the darkest days of the Great Depression, inside that brick and stone building, people found each other. They shared their news. They ate their meals. They laughed. And they cried. Men who had lost their jobs drew strength from their next-door neighbors. Mothers took their children by the hand and walked down that dirt-covered street. And the door to that bar was open to everyone. Rich or poor, exhausted or hopeful. Those who walked through that door caught their breath, if only for a moment. In the end, you can't help but think, if Berenice Abbott hadn't gone to Ewen Avenue that morning, if she hadn't slung that massive camera over her shoulder, if she hadn't wandered those streets to capture that perfect frame, this story wouldn't exist. That bar wouldn't exist. That man wouldn't exist. That child wouldn't exist. One day, someone will ask, how did those people live? What did they feel? What did they hold on to? The answer lies right there. In that single frame Berenice Abbott froze on a crisp autumn morning on a random corner in the Bronx. And that answer is simple, yet universal. We were here. We were real. And we didn't give up on each other. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.